is an addictive drug which produces in its users insanity, criminality, and death.
Marijuana is the most violence-causing drug in the history of mankind.
If the hideous monster Frankenstein came face to face with the monster of marijuana, he would drop dead from fright.
Reefer Madness.
All right, everybody, welcome back. And we're going into Reefer Madness today to look at CNN's Situation Room with Wolf Blitzer. This last Friday, his guests were drug czar Gil Kerlikowske and former first drug czar ever, drug czar Bill Bennett. On CNN's Situation Room with Wolf Blitzer, this is courtesy of MoxNews.com.
America has a huge drug problem, but the Obama administration now wants to end what's been called the war on drugs and start treating this as a public health matter. I sat down with the current drug czar, Gil Kerlikowske. He's director of the Office of National Drug Policy, and with CNN contributor Bill Bennett. He was the first drug czar back in the George H.W. Bush administration. Does the change in focus suggest the government is open to legalizing marijuana?
No, legalization is an absolute non-starter in the Obama administration.
All right, before we go much further, let's pause here with our drug czar Gil Kerlikowske, because I'd like to remind folks that the drug czar is required by law to lie. And we're looking at this right now in the cam here. According to Title VII, the Office of National Drug Control Policy Reauthorization Act of 1998, responsibilities of the director, that's the drug czar, shall ensure that no federal funds appropriated to the Office of National Drug Control Policy shall be expended for any study or contract relating to the legalization for a medical use or any other use of a substance listed in Schedule 1 of the Controlled Substances Act. That would be marijuana, among others. And to take such actions as necessary to oppose any attempt to legalize the use of a substance in any form that is listed in Schedule 1 and has not been approved for medical purposes by the Food and Drug Administration. Take any such actions as necessary to oppose any attempt to legalize marijuana. So remember, that's Gil Kerlikowske's job description. All right, let's go back to the video.
And it just makes no sense. But what we do know is that there are a lot of people frustrated about the war on drugs. They don't see success. They know friends, they know relatives, they know what's happened in their own neighborhoods. We're going to bring some other people into this issue at the same level that we have law enforcement. That's where we're headed.
Because the argument...
Let's talk about why the American people are so frustrated about this war on certain American citizens using non-pharmaceutical, non-alcoholic, tobacco-free drugs. I'll put a graph up here on the screen. You can see this is a graph of all American wars. Now, in the first set of bars here, you're seeing the wars in the 18th and 19th century, all combined. Revolutionary War, War of 1812, Mexican-American War, and so on. All the wars in our first two centuries were 17 years and 2 months worth of total time. We moved to the 20th and 21st century wars, including Vietnam, Afghanistan, Iraq, and World War I, World War II. The total of all those wars lasted 33 years and 1 month. The war on drugs has been going on now for 40 years, longer than all American wars in the 20th and 21st century combined, with no results.
In favor of legalizing marijuana is sort of this. We legalized alcohol, we regulate it, people deal with it. Why not do the same thing with marijuana, and as a result open up efforts to deal with much more serious drug-related issues like heroin, for example?
You know, as a police chief for a long time, I never saw officers in Seattle running around spending an inordinate amount of time chasing people for a small amount of marijuana.
This is one thing drug warriors say that just blows my mind. Marijuana is this terribly dangerous drug. We just absolutely can't legalize it. But we really don't spend a lot of time going after people who are breaking that law. It's either illegal and dangerous or it's not illegal and dangerous, right? Pick and choose. And when he says that the cops in Seattle weren't running around doing that, well, part of that is because the voters of Seattle approved an initiative that made the enforcement of marijuana laws the lowest police priority. I'll tell you what, Seattle ain't Columbia, Missouri, that's for sure, where a man just had his dog shot and killed in front of his 7-year-old. We showed that video all week. Let me give you some graphs too as well to kind of illustrate exactly who's getting arrested here. First of all, when we look at arrests for all drugs, marijuana, the green part of this pie graph, make up almost half, 49% of all arrests in the war on drugs are arrests for marijuana. 44% of all arrests in the war on drugs are for marijuana possession, not dealing, not growing, mere possession of marijuana. And the drug czar wants you to believe that they really don't spend a lot of time going around and arresting people for marijuana. Well, who are these half of all the people arrested for drugs being arrested for marijuana? Another chart is the chart of how many total arrests we've had for marijuana. This is from 1990 all the way to 2008. Unless you think this is a Republican or a Democrat issue, Clinton and George W. Bush, both 8-year presidents, locked up about the same number or arrested about the same number of marijuana consumers, with a total of 847,000 arrests for marijuana last year from the Obama administration.
We know that the health costs of alcohol, the health costs of nicotine versus the taxes collected doesn't even begin to pay for those social and criminal justice costs.
Oh yeah, and you know why? Because marijuana ain't alcohol and tobacco. Alcohol is toxic. It can kill you and it's addictive. Tobacco is toxic, it can kill you, and it's addictive. But let's just take a look at some more data on this, because Canada took a look at this. Canada took a look and asked, what does it cost per user per year of 3 selected substances? Here on the left, we see tobacco, $800 worth of healthcare costs per user per year in Canada. Alcohol here, the middle one, $165 worth of healthcare costs per user per year. You can barely see it here on the right, but cannabis, that little $20 figure, yeah, that's right, $20 per user per year in healthcare costs for cannabis. So it's no surprise that the taxes on tobacco and alcohol don't make up the healthcare costs, because there are so many healthcare costs associated with alcohol and tobacco. Meanwhile, with cannabis, this other bar you're seeing is the $328 per user per year that Canada spends on keeping cannabis illegal. That's right, we're spending $328 a year to save $20.
Why have another mood-altering drug made legal and then more widely available because of its legality?
Well, would you want to criminal?
More widely available. Well, let's take a look at some more graphs here. Here's some graphs about teenagers in the 8th grade, the 10th grade, and the 12th grade when surveyed on how easy it is for them to get a hold of marijuana. 37% of 8th graders, 69% of 10th graders, and a full 83.9% of 12th graders say it is easy or fairly easy to get marijuana. And when we take a look at the use rates from different countries, in the United States, 41.8% of all adult Americans have tried marijuana. In the Netherlands, where marijuana is somewhat tolerated, it's only 19%. Here's another look at how available marijuana is. They talk about, whether or not we're going to allow another drug. Well, folks, guess what? Marijuana is already here. In this chart, you can see from the ages of 18 to 25, 28% of the population uses marijuana at least once per year, with 11% of them using at least twice per week. At the ages 26 to 34, it's almost 14%, 35 to 49, 8%, and people 50 and over, the fastest growing segment of people that are using marijuana, a full 3% of them are already using marijuana. When we look at the overall use of marijuana, how many people have actually ever tried marijuana? In 1987, it was 50 million people. Last year, it was 102 million total marijuana users. Now, of course, the population has gone up, but as a percentage, the percentage of people who have used marijuana has gone from 28% to 41%. So the only question now is not whether or not we're going to allow something, because it's already happening. The question is the state going to control it, or are criminals going to control it?
Alcoholic use?
No, I'm not going back down that path, but I don't think that we need another thing that causes so much hurt to families and people.
Is this a waste of resources, though, to spend so much law enforcement, judicial effort, criminalizing people that want to go out and smoke pot?
No, we had 40,000 people die last year because of drug use. We could make that 80,000 or 120 or 360,000 by making it legal. You make it legal.
Wait a minute, we're talking about making marijuana legal. You want to talk about people who have died from drug use, the 20,000, the 80,000, 360,000. Of that number, 0 would be people who had died from marijuana use. Marijuana is non-toxic. It cannot kill you.
You make it more accessible. You get permission for it. Alcohol is legal.